And welcome everyone to the Nullify Tech channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Traitors New Zealand Deep Dives, baby. I'm your host, Mucky Hope, and today I'm joined by two very stunning, very amazing queens. But as always, I'll start off with my co-host at the bottom. Normally she's the first one to arrive, but this time she was slacking. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the slacking, the amazing, the fabulous Vee. Vee, how are you?
I'm good. That could be my Tinder bio. Definitely slacking all day. Slacking. Love it.
Well, Vee, we've been chatting a lot recently about, who should we interview, right? Who should we do some deep dives with? And you said, Mucky, I better be bloody on a Traitors deep dive. The only people who I want to talk to are Traitors. And so everyone, please welcome the winner of Traitors New Zealand Season 2, the faithful, the murderous, the traitorous, Bailey! Bailey, how are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me. This is very exciting. Very scary, but very exciting.
Of course. Well, Bailey, we all loved your game. And Julia, unfortunately, she couldn't make it this morning, but in week 2 said, you are the player to watch. And I was like, maybe, I don't know. But as much as I hate to say it, Julia was right. And, you were the number 1 player to watch.
That's nuts. That is so nuts that she called it that early, because watching it back, I'm like, I was barely there. What was going on? So that was good on Julia. She called that. But yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? It's a very weird situation to be in.
Yeah, well, now that Traitors is over, how's life been going for you?
Life is great. Life was great pre-Traitors. It's great post-Traitors. It feels very surreal. And my mum even was saying the other day, like, it feels like a fever dream. It just happened, and now it's done. And now we're just kind of back into the real swing of just life. But yeah, it's amazing. It's cool to look back on such a weird, like, crazy experience and be like, oh yeah, that did take up part of my year, and waiting for it to come out was like kind of the most. All the tension was there for so many months, and now it's all just done. So it feels weird, but it's actually quite nice. It's like it's all out there. Everyone knows. I don't have to hide anything anymore. I don't have to be careful what I'm saying. I have to be careful with what I've been saying since April. So that's really nice. Yeah.
Well, Vee can tell you, this what telephone, telegraph, telemichael. I can't keep my mouth shut about anything, right? I'm just so loud and so out there. Like, how hard was it, like, keeping all this a secret from your friends and family?
It was really hard, but I'd honestly kept the fact that I was going on the show a secret from everyone except for my partner. I'd kept that secret for 2 months already. So, and I think the fact I didn't want them to find out anything before they got to see it, that kind of kept me, like, I had a reason to not tell them, because I was like, nope, it's going to be so much better for them to watch it and see it all unfold. That's so much more exciting. And I would have, if it was someone in my family going on it instead, I would have appreciated getting to see it as it unfolded on TV. So yeah. Well, it's hard, but not too hard.
Well, what was it like, I guess, in the, just before you went out? Were you like a fan of the Traitors before going out?
Yeah, so my mum got me onto the UK season last year. And I watched both those seasons, and I loved it. Thought it was a great game. I love the fact that it was normal people, just average normal people trying to play this hectic game. And I then watched the New Zealand season and just looked up when is season 2 coming, just out of curiosity. I just wanted more to watch, and found out the applications were open. I was like, that would be kind of funny. Like, why not? I've got the afternoon to fill out this application form. I'll give it a shot. But yeah, definitely a fan. It's a cool game.
Yeah.
So that's a real testament to if you enjoy a show, just to Google it and see,
try your best.
You might end up the winner.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few months, and here you are.
Yeah.
Honestly, I also, this is part of the like why I did it story is I have always watched, Survivor and those sorts of game shows where there's like challenges. And I've always thought, I wonder how well I would do at challenges. And I love that Traitors had missions. And I was like, that's a bit fun. And then I also, you obviously deduced from the show, I did from the UK season anyway, that no one's sharing rooms. You got your own room each night. I was like, that's so much better than Survivor. Like, sharing a bed with strangers out in the bush. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, like go toilet in the bush. No, thank you. Yeah. Traitors, I get challenges and I get like my own bed. So.
Did being a Survivor fan affect how you like potentially prepared or even played the game of Traitors?
I don't think so, really. I mean, I guess you have different things in the back of your head and you know what people have said on different shows that instantly people didn't like, and you keep that at the forefront. Like, if I act like that, people are probably going to retaliate like that. So it wasn't at the forefront of my mind at all in terms of other shows, but it was definitely, I think you just naturally watching those sort of gameplay shows, gameplay is the biggest thing, right? It's on your mind the whole time of how I'm going to play this. But I wasn't trying to emulate other people's strategies from other shows or anything. I was like, I'm going to just try my best.
Yeah, well, something that Vee and I talked a lot about as the season went on is that in a show like Survivor, you have like your group, your alliance, I guess kind of similar to the Pacific Ring of Fire, and you kind of like move forward together in that group. But what's hard about Traitors is that it's not really about forming alliances. It's about like finding traitors and stuff. So it's much more of like a emotional heavy game, more so than a strategic game, if that makes sense.
For sure. And you get actually a lot of warning before you go, like, this is a really psychological game. And I'm thinking, how bad can it be? Surely. And then watching, I've already watched the UK seasons, and I remember my first thought of the first season was, why does everyone cry all the time? It's just vote the person out. They know that they might go home. Like, everyone knows what you've signed up for, and then you get all these warnings. But when you're there, I think you're exhausted as well. I think you're exhausted because your brain doesn't switch off, and that contributes to the emotions. And it's really hard because the whole game is you can't trust anyone. So you could form an alliance, sure, but you can't really trust that. So it definitely wasn't a goal of mine at all to form any alliances or stuff. It was to meet good people and to make friendships. And I thought that being in this weird experience together, we're probably all going to bond anyway. And you come out of it and you look back and you go, that was weird that we all did that together, but how cool, we've all met each other. But it definitely wasn't a thought of, I'm going to form an alliance, because you just can't trust anyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right off the bat, we do see you and Donna have this long-lasting friendship that really does take you all the way through to the end. Like, can you talk us through on how the relationship all started?
Yes. It's crazy because you don't see much of it, but on about day 2, Donna and I just knew, like I say, you can't trust anyone. I just felt like I could trust Donna, and she felt like she could trust me. And we both across the so bad. Across the round table, I think we had each pretty much pointed across and been like, well, I trust Donna, and I trust Bailey. We'd both done that. And I just felt so solid in that. And I was right. Like, it was a good feeling. But we really stuck together, and it is really nice to have someone to bounce ideas off and put names to that you feel like you can trust, because there was a lot of other people that I didn't want to speak in front of with conviction, because I was like, I don't trust that person, So it was really nice to have someone that you felt you could trust. You can't trust anyone, but you do have to go off your gut sometimes, and that was my gut instinct. And me, Donna and Jace were actually spent a lot of time together. Also, you don't really see it. And we had so many hilarious conversations of, if one of you's a traitor, I'm like, God, good on you sort of thing. And then when I got switched to a traitor, it was just, my first thought was, oh my God, I'm going to reach the end with Donna and I'm going to have to tell her I'm a traitor. And that is, like I say, worst. That is my worst nightmare. Everyone was lovely. I loved everyone, but she was my person and you don't want to do that to your person. So that was sad. But at the end of the day, it was a game and we all knew that. And I saw it coming.
Yeah. Well, we do see like just to jump ahead quite a bit. Like I think it was around like the final 6 or maybe final 7. You are throwing out Donna's name as someone to potentially get banished. Was that so that potentially you wouldn't have to break her heart at the very end, or?
Yep. I would have loved. I would have loved every time I was in that damn conclave. I was like, I just want to murder Donna, like just to end it like nicely almost, instead of having to vote for her, instead of having to stand at the end. My dream was to murder Donna, which sounds terrible, but purely because it's selfish. I just didn't want that trauma for both of us at the end. Oh God, so awful. But the day I voted for Donna, I was starting as a traitor. You go from as a faithful trying to find evidence, right, for anything of, you did something weird, you're a traitor. Then you flick into the traitor role and you're trying to come up with reasons why other people could be traitors. And when Donna first put out the idea of why am I still here, I was like, genius question. I'm taking that and I'm running with it. Like you have to just grasp at anything. And at that point, I felt like all my other kind of vote options were exhausted. So I wasn't voting for Joe because we'd already kind of tried that the night that he was really, really sad. That was a plan. And I was like, I can't vote for him. That was just so heartbreaking. I couldn't vote for him. Seali, I wasn't going to vote for just yet because I'd also just defended him. I had been saying since I was a faithful, I think, that I wasn't going to, I trust Noel. So I wasn't voting for Noel. And then it kind of left me with Jace and Donna. And I was like, that night, Jace had the double dagger. So there was no point voting against someone with 2 votes. So that's where the Donna vote kind of came from. And it was awful. But it was my kind of play the whole time. And I don't think I ever thought I was going to convince everyone to vote for Donna. I never thought that was going to happen. But I had to try just something else you got to try things. So
and how is everything with Donna now? Was it quite rocky at first, or?
The night of the finale, it was just a bit rocky in the fact that she was so upset and it was just a really sad situation. But she's the best, and she had already said to me, I think that night or the next morning, because we all had to fly back to Wellington together the next morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be with these people who I've just beaten, and got rid of in this competition. And all credit to Donna. She was amazing. And she said that she was so proud. And she was crying in her interviews, and she said, I'm so proud of Bailey. So sad. I'm still proud of her. So, no, she's amazing. And we talk all the time. And we had dinner last week with her and Jason and their partners. And it's really, really lovely. Just so much respect for everyone in the game.
Yeah. Did you have similar feelings towards Jason? Were you also not wanting to go to the end with him for the same reasons?
To a degree, but I think part of me maybe knew that, not that Jace was on to me, but that he may flip at some stage. I think I was more aware of that. And I think Jace is just so happy-go-lucky, and I knew that he would probably laugh about it and saying, oh, Bale's get on you sort of thing. Whereas I feel like I knew Donna would be really hurt because we had so many discussions on I trust you 100%. I trust you 100%. We're going to the end. Like, we've got this. We can do this. So, yeah.
Well, before we talk a little bit more about your traitorous, devious game, I'd love to hear more about the faithful side of you, the innocent side of you, before you're backstabbing everyone. Because as you mentioned before, we didn't actually see a lot of what's happening in your game before you became a traitor. And so, I guess right off the start, when the legend Sam Smith is handing out wine to everyone, and there are 2 cups with rosé, was it any part of you that was like, ooh, I fancy a little bit of rosé, or nah?
No, so I saw them, and you see them instantly, and I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. And in the show, though, they put a bit of me being like, oh, they're going to go home. I knew it was going to be a good thing, but there was no way I was putting myself into like in front of anyone, making myself stand out. I was not drawing any attention to myself in the first 5 minutes of this game. Like, absolutely not. So no way. Good on Whitney and Molly. They were brave little cookies. I didn't.
Yeah. So you weren't selected as a traitor at first. What was your initial feelings? Did you always wanted to play a faithful game or a traitor game?
Do you know what? And this is so boring. And this is why I'm like, I'm the world's most boring traitor ever. But from the get-go, I was like, I'm 50-50. And which is such a boring answer. And I told Paul, I was like, Paul, you're not going to like this, but I'm 50-50. And from the get-go, I was like, I think I could win this as a faithful. And I think I could potentially win this as a traitor. And after my interview with, you talk to Paul, telling him what you want to be and what you want to do with the money, I walked out and I was like, I'm going to be a traitor. I'm going to be a traitor. This is it. And I was like giddy. I was like, this is it. Like, this is my time. They're going to pick me. And then the selection happened and I was gutted. I was so gutted. And then obviously in hindsight, I'm like, of course they didn't pick me. Like, I'm the non-actor, the least theatrical. Like, I'm so glad they didn't pick me. It would have been so boring. But they picked the right people, but I was really gutted about it. But then I could obviously, you're not lying and you just can go into it freely. You can talk to people pretty much freely. And saying that though, as a faithful, you are still, at least in my brain, every single thought is calculated. Like every single thing you say, you think, if I say it this way, that could look dodgy. If I say it this way, that could look dodgy. So you're thinking about everything before you say it. Everywhere you look, I was thinking, okay, if I look at this person too long, that's dodgy. So you got to think about where you're looking, what you're doing, how fast you're eating. Like if you're eating things, if you're shaking for whatever reason, you're nervous. Like there's so much you have to think about as a faithful regardless. So it's not easy. It's not, in saying that, we're not lying, but it's not easy.
I mean, that's something that's so crazy about the Traitors game, right? So literally anything can send you home, right? Like Stephen, for example, like he just wanted to think about the murder or the banishment, and then he gets pretty much like unanimously voted out that day, right? Mark is like always smiling and stuff, and everyone's getting shitty at him.
Honestly,
Well, obviously Mark was such a huge character, especially in the early game. People either wanted to get rid of him because they were sick of him, or they believed he was a traitor. What was your thoughts on Mark as he was playing throughout the game?
Day one, so Mark was in my car as we drove in, and I instantly was like, this guy is a character. Like, he's such a character, but I just called it. I was like, that is him. I think that is just him. And in my head, then, his name starts going around of, I think he's a traitor. And I'm like, it's just too obvious to me. It's just too obvious. And then you think, oh, well, maybe it's too obvious. So then it probably is, they probably did make him a traitor. But it was too obvious. And I think I may have told him that. And then he was definitely saying, people were saying that they think I'm a faithful already. And I think that's very suspicious. And I was like, oh my God, I can't win. I can't win. You're trying to make decisions as best as you can on the first day of like, okay, don't trust you, do trust you. I'm going to look more into you. And so he was one of my, okay, pretty sure you're a faithful, but whatever, it's day one. So when he said that, I was like, that's so annoying. I'm not suspicious. You're joking. Everyone here knows I'm a faithful. So it was really funny when he voted for me because I kind of knew. I just knew that his eye was on me, you know, at some point. Like I'd already alerted his suspicions, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, in the early games, since we didn't see much of what you were doing, who were your initial thoughts on who the traitors might be?
Well, so I have in my diary, and my first day diary, I picked my main 3 options were Mike, Jane, and Andrew. And then I had and then I had like a sub 3, and they were, which was really funny, Molly, Noel, and Joe. So I was like, I got 2 on the first. First instincts, but also really funny. They didn't put it in, and I was really expecting them to, but it made sense. They didn't. The first day, there was a room of us. I think it was like me, Noel, Andrew, and maybe Jace. And I think the traitors had been selected for about 10 minutes at that point. So there's not really too much to go on. You're just kind of chatting. And I had this kind of thought of, if they lined all of us up, who do I just think the producers would have picked as traitors, or whoever, Paul, the producer? Who can I imagine them being like, yeah, okay, let's pick them first off. And so I put it out to the group, like, who do you guys just think would make a good traitor as opposed to who you actually think right now is one? Because I think Whitney. And then someone said, it might have been Noel. I think Noel said, well, since you're like being brave and putting names out, I'm going to say maybe Mike or something. And I was like, oh my God, this is day 1. I've just put a name out. No one else is willing to put names out. I've just shot myself in the foot. I spent the first day panicking. And I went to Whitney that night and I was like, Whitney, I just need you to know that I said this before, that I think you'd be a really good traitor, but I have no evidence that you are a traitor. I don't think you are one right now. And I was so stressed. And it's just, I've used the analogy before that it's like you're in high school and you're gossiping about people, and then you have to go group together that night and say your gossip about the people right in front of you to the other people. And it's just awful. So I was trying to get ahead of the gossip before it reached Whitney. And then, oh man, terrifying. But she was bloody traitor.
There you go. You're lucky you didn't get murdered in that first instance. But speaking to the round table, I think something that we noticed early on is that you're always quite calm and collected at the round table. And we saw a lot of the other cast members getting quite heightened. I think we have plays of the week, and I think one of my sort of joke plays of the week was when you said to Bree something like, is this too stressful for you? Or something like that. Can you speak to that a little bit? Was that a bit of strategy, or was that you genuinely concerned for her welfare?
A bit of both. I told myself going into the game that I need to talk at the banishment tables if I've got something good to say. I wasn't just going to talk for the sake of it, but I wanted to know. I didn't want people to be like, well, you don't speak at the round table, so that's dodgy. So that was something I was aware of. And so Bree, obviously the first round table was the whole Terry situation. And about 10 minutes before we went into that round table, Bree told me that Terry had brought my name into it. And Terry and I the whole day had been together on Jane. I had seen exactly what he'd seen. I agreed with him. Jane was my number 1. And so then Bree 10 minutes before goes, well, Terry put your name in. And I was like, who told you that? And she's like, I can't remember. So at the banishment table, I put it out. I'm like, okay, so who said this? Who, like Terry, she didn't get it from Terry, but who said it? And everyone was silent. And I was like, okay, because I had gone in being like, oh, Terry, maybe Terry's not who I think he is. Like, maybe I can't trust Terry. So then I was absolutely frazzled. And so that was the first night, you know, and then that was that drama that you see. And then the next few, it was like, it honestly was what I said every time we walked in. something just flicked in Brie, and it was just this erratic like thing. And I love Brie. She's so lovely, and she was the first person I spoke to walking in on the first day, and I was like, she's awesome, she's great, she's so bubbly, she's lovely. But something about that room just triggered this like thing. Yeah, and I think I was like, are you okay? Are you good? Are you coming here? What happened? Because that was my main thing of like, I don't want to look guilty. I'm not guilty at this point. I can't look guilty coming in here out of nerves. So I was really like, I wasn't even going to grab my water in case my hand was shaking, and I didn't want people to see that. And it only would have been shaking out of just the intensity of the situation and the adrenaline, but I wasn't going to risk it. So I'd just sit there and I'd have my feet like firmly on the floor and I'd take my breath, you know, but you have to do it also subtly, because anyone could look at you at the wrong second and be like, oh, why are you breathing?
Well, that must have been a really stressful first couple of days, you know, with the Whitney gossip, you know, and then you know, Brie can't tell you who's been throwing your name around and everyone's silent. Like, oh my gosh, how did you keep it together?
I think the first night everyone thinks they're going home, right? If you're not a trainee, you think, well, it's me. So once you kind of get through that first day, you're like, all right. And I think there's just so much going on and things change so fast that you can't really get like solidified into one thing. I remember just saying in all my interviews is just, I'm so frazzled all the time. I don't know what's happening. But I think at the end of the day, you're playing a game, and I said it to myself 10 times a day. This is just a game. Yeah. Like, you go and you write a name down, you hold it up, and whatever happens, happens. Like, I can't control who's going to be murdered at night either. So, like, you can only control what you can control. And I was there to have fun and enjoy the experience. So I wasn't going to, like, psych myself out too early on. Yeah. And it was fun. Those first few days, it was great. You're meeting great people and you're having funny chats, and, you know, everyone's putting out some weird evidence, and it's all a bit of fun. So, yeah, you can't take it too seriously.
What was the weirdest piece of evidence someone had for someone while you're on the Traitors show?
Oh, the weirdest piece of evidence. I mean, there were some bits that were kind of weird, but actually ultimately were true. Like, so I guess Mike's pulsating vein was one that, like, he was a traitor, which was true. But I think, the situation with Steve, and that people were saying the thing he said at breakfast, and I didn't hear it. I don't even know if I was there for it, but it was over my head. And then they're like, he said we instead of me, or whatever he said. And I was just like, can we really go off that? Can we? And then I guess that kind of ties into when Kat was going for Seali, and she was like, they iced me out of a conversation. And it's not weird, but it's like, I think that's just your personal experience of what happened, and then the rest of the guys are saying it didn't happen, and you're just like, I can't go off that. I couldn't put someone's name down based on something so personal, you know, to them. But I think to me the funniest, kind of like weirdest one was the pulsating vein. That was pretty.
Well, we do have a great twist that popped up as well. It was the grave diggers twist, where you have Andrew, Noel, and Brie literally digging their own graves. What was your whole thoughts on that twist?
I think it was great. I think it was, obviously it was a great play, because everyone's instinct is there's one traitor in there, like, without a doubt. And then as you know, a couple of days go on, I'm like, these traitors are good. Like, I don't think they've put a traitor in there. I just think that it's also spiraled so far more than it probably needed to. And I think they almost all three of them shot themselves in the foot. Like, it was just, so Andrew was one of my, like, first date people, like, instincts. And then kind of sat in that kind of question mark for the next couple of days. And then when he came out and was like, only vote for one of us, I was like, why would you say that? Like, you've now twisted everything over to you guys. Like, all the attention's on you. And yeah, I just think it was 3 chaotic people, obviously, like, in a chaotic situation, and it just spiraled. But it was kind of good. It was actually quite nice to take the attention off anyone else. It was nice to have that narrowing of, okay, vote for one of us. And I was like, okay, good. I've got, it's narrowed down the pool of what I'm fearing of who I could vote for tonight. So that was kind of good.
Yeah, because that really stuck with Noel for pretty much the entire game. I felt like since that moment, everyone was just always so onto Noel. It's like if people weren't bashing Mark, they were bashing Noel. Yeah. Right? And it was like game of table tennis almost between the two of them.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, nah, this guy's definitely a faithful?
So not too long after that, like when I started thinking, no, I think they played a clever move and they put 3 faithfuls in. And then I looked back and I realized that no, so it was after Mike had gone and we knew he was a traitor. And there was only a short time between Mike leaving and me becoming a traitor. So it must have been that day. But it was the fact that Noel had pretty much gunned for Mike or had put Mike's name out a few times at the start. And I was like, why would you do that? We know Mike was a traitor from day one, or we think he is. Why would Noel have done that? And then he could be a recruit. And I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And to me, Noel defended himself so unbelievably well that I thought, you could only do that if you're not lying. He's great at talking. He's great at articulating himself, like phenomenal. But I just like, if I was under that much scrutiny and I was telling the truth, like if you're telling the truth, it's easy, right? You can bring in your points. So that was where I was like, I trust him. And then obviously when I found out the last traitor was Jane, I was like, yes, I knew Noel was faithful. But you obviously can't come in the next day and be like, guys, trust me.
Well, speaking of Mike, just before I guess the episode where Whitney gets voted out, Mike singles you out as one of the few people where she is like a bit of evidence and him going after Whitney. And we do see you mention this to Whitney. What was the reason for you on bringing this up with Whitney?
So I didn't bring it up. Whitney brought it up. And Whitney, I don't know how Whitney knew. So Whitney, we're in the car coming back from the challenge. And Whitney was already aware that her name was being mentioned. And I have no idea how she knew that. She just somehow did. And so Mike took that as I'd run to Whitney and told her, which I hadn't. I had just sat in the car. Okay. Yeah. And Whitney was like, guys, my name's being chucked around. Do you know why? And I just told her, well, it was I think it's because of the challenge. And like, you thought the lungs were over. Yeah. And to me, what I said in the show is I didn't go running to Whitney. I don't think I broke your trust because I wasn't telling her anything she didn't already know. She was at the challenge. She knew it was weird. She was aware of that. And so when Mike's singling me out for all this stuff, I'm like, that's not accurate. That's not true. So yeah, I knew it was coming, but then I was like, okay, you're just making yourself look more guilty right now too, Mike. So, because you've been a traitor since day one. So I was like, well, here we go.
Well, we do see the pair of you actually go toe to toe for pretty much 2 roundtables back to back. When he was getting voted out, were you confident that all the votes were going to go his way?
The night he actually went?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was pretty confident then. I wished it had been the night before, but obviously I learned very early on that I have no sway. And so I knew, but I was like, I'm not voting. I think it was Stephen who went out the night that I voted for Mike. I was like, I'm not voting for Stephen. I stand by everything Stephen did. He needed a second to think. Not that I would have said that. I was very aware that I would not have made the decision to say, I need a second to think, or maybe we should, do murder instead of banishment. I knew that would go down like a lead balloon. Like I knew it was going to be terrible. But I just couldn't get on board with everyone's reasoning. So some of the reasoning was, oh, well, when Britt left, she said it's Stephen. And I'm like, Britt had a great track record, but I can't go off that because that's just an inkling. Like that's not, it's not evidence. And I trusted Stephen. So I couldn't vote for him. I just knew it was Mike. I was like, no one was being murdered that night, so what did I have to lose? I'm going to put his name down. Sure. And it was a bit sad that it took Utah the next day to sway everyone and like lead the charge. And I'm like, I was under the day before. Like, come on. But that's okay. That's how the cookie crumbles. So that's fine. But I was confident.
What was your relationship like with Utah? Because we do see the pair of you band together at the end of the episode to be like, oi, we got to take down Mike. We got to take down Mike. What was your relationship like with Utah?
He wasn't someone I was around a lot of the time, but we definitely chatted. And he was, do you know what? He was actually on my suspicion list the night that I got turned into a traitor. Jane had dropped down. I'd swapped Jane for Ben, and Utah was my other one because I just started very early on. He told the table that Janae had said 3 names, I think. Noel, Mark, and Mike or something. But he told me when I asked him, he's like, Janae only said 1 name, and it was Noel. And then at the round table, he's saying something else. So I was like, that's really weird. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Because he was so certain on like the 3 names, only 1 name. So he was on my suspicion list. But when he wanted to band together against Mike, I was stoked because I knew he had sway. So, but we weren't overly like, I don't feel like we chatted too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about, the plot twist, the turning point, like in every story, there's a moment where the hero becomes a little bit villainous, right? You are chosen alongside Mark to, put forward your pitch to Jane about why you would make the perfect traitor. Like, what was going through your mind when you realized you were going up against Mark?
Well, I didn't know quite how it was going to play out. Obviously, I see Mark and I'm like, okay, like one of us is going home. I knew it was coming. At the end of that day, you go back to your room, and I actually wrote in my diary, we figured that we were down to 1 traitor. And I was like, okay, if I was a traitor, who would I recruit? And I can't remember what it was, but it was something like someone who's already got suspicion on them or could be voted out, Mark. Somebody who they think would crumble under the pressure of being a traitor, me. And so I was not surprised when it was both of us. And it was literally like you see it on TV where they're like, okay, Bailey, Mark, you have 30 seconds to plead your case. Bailey, go. Like, okay. Well, and I when Mark was talking, I was blacked out. Like, I think I was running over what I'd said and just thinking, why did you say that? That is not a good argument. And I mulled over it back in my room after it had all gone down. And I was like, Bailey, that was a terrible argument. So much so that the next day in my interviews, I was like, can I just talk about, can I defend what I was saying last night? Because I think I was so frazzled. Words just came out. I didn't even hear Mark mention the note. I was so in my own head. Like, went straight over me. And then I thought I was getting murdered. So I was like, oh, okay, well, it's been fun. Bye, everyone. And then Mark gets dragged off. So I couldn't have a laugh.
And you narrowly escaped murder.
So nuts, right? I was murdered for about 5 seconds.
And we were so pleased at that. I remember Julia mentioning that, like, it was so great to have Bailey as a traitor. And what I thought was just remarkable was, first of all, you didn't really misstep from the second you became a traitor. And also your personality didn't change. And that is usually where we see, like, Mike tripped up when he got a bit of power because he got Whitney banished, and then suddenly he was like, I didn't grab a shield. Whereas
We're all like, what?
managed to just stay the same. Was that almost impossible to do?
It was something I was very aware of, and I think it was because I had been so strict in how I'd been a faithful almost. I was like, okay, just keep doing it. Keep going into breakfast, keep eating your chia pudding and 2 croissants, and don't vary. Like, don't all of a sudden eat 10 croissants and everyone will be like, was she nervous? What's happening? So it wasn't impossible. And so when I was sitting there saying, I think I'm a psychopath, that was genuine. I was like, in my diary, I'm saying, this is really easy. It's so fun. Like, it's so funny how easy this is coming to me. What's wrong with me? So not impossible. I think obviously the closer you get to the end, it gets so much harder because there's less people to point the finger at. So the attention is coming onto you. And that was where I was starting to get nervous because I was like, I actually don't know how I'd be able to handle people coming for me when I am lying.
Yeah.
So,
well, what's your relationship like with Jane at that point? Because obviously she chooses Mark over you, but then Mark is Mark and he takes himself out of the game. So like what's your relationship like with Jane? Like did you trust Jane as a traitor, like, or you just like, nah?
To be honest, and this was, I said my strategy going in was play as a faithful, and it sounds so dumb because it's so obvious, but it's like play as a faithful. So whatever I'm doing as faithful, I do as a traitor. And Jane had been my number one since day one. She'd been my instinct. And so I literally went into traitor and just went, okay, who was I saying yesterday was a traitor? Jane and maybe Ben and maybe Utah, you know? So I just, in hindsight, I guess it was a weird strategy that I wasn't aware I was doing, but I was putting out, if I had any inkling over someone, I would say it. So at least 1 or 2, maybe Jason, Donna, always Donna, I guess, would know that I'd already put that name out. So by the time I was a traitor, if I was all of a sudden saying names, they weren't surprises. I'd already had a theory for them 3 days ago, you know? So it kind of set me up quite well to be like, well, do you know what? I've never trusted Molly. Molly was always my question mark. So I'm going to vote for her. That kind of thing. So yeah, it's crazy. It was a crazy game.
Did you have an inkling to then maybe take Jane's name off the table since she was a fellow traitor, or were you thinking, well, she's a traitor, I've already put her name out there, I'm playing the same game I was yesterday, sorry, Jane?
Precisely that. I was like, I've been gunning for you since day one. I'm voting for you now, because as I was literally playing as a faithful. I was like, yeah, I think I've always thought it's Jane, and now finally people are joining me, Jane. And it wasn't, I don't think I obviously knew. I was like, well, if she goes, I'm the last traitor. But it was just of a thing of, she's been a traitor since day one. I was gunning for traitors. I'm getting her out. And I was never going to try and defend her, because that would have thrown me straight under the bus, because since day one, I was putting her name out. So that would have looked so suspicious. So it was the easiest thing to go in with the masses.
Well, straight after Jane gets taken out, we do see, huge plot twist where Utah is murdered. We have this whole emotional reactions from everyone. We even have a shower scene, which I don't swing that way, but that definitely caught me by surprise. And we get the reveal that Seali gets blackmailed and murdered him. What's what's your thoughts on recruiting Seali?
At that point, I think it's hard to remember exactly what I was thinking that moment, because you don't get long to decide, in all honesty. And so I didn't trust Utah because I knew he could sway, so I knew he could turn on me at any second. Jason, Donna, I think it was a case of almost trying to not break up us, as in like, well, if one of them is also a traitor, we're going to have to turn on each other at some point. Which was silly, but and I think Seali for me was like stable. There's been no suspicion on him yet. And I was like, this is a great choice. So under the radar. He's good at talking. He's good at, I guess at that point he hadn't really had to defend himself. And it just felt like a really safe, solid option of someone I'm not like crazy close with, but we've definitely come up with theories together and we've, gone for different people together. And it just felt like a really solid decision. It felt like someone who I wasn't too close to, but I also wasn't like so intimidated by that they were going to sway other people against me.
Yeah. And was Utah always the primary target for that murder as well?
I don't think he was. I think that first murder was a bit like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And I can't even remember who the other options were at that point. But he was strong. He was a strong player. And at that point, I think he pretty much had the best track record, like up until that point of getting the right people out. And so it was kind of, I think it was a little bit surprising that Seali, because I think Seali put his name forward and was kind of like, let's do it. And I was a bit like, okay, wasn't expecting it, but I'm fine with that. Like, let's go for it. He's strong. Let's get him out because he'll definitely like hunt us down. So it was a bit of, I think we were just so frazzled in that first one, just being like, okay, we've got to make a decision. This is nuts. Who do you pick?
Well, being a Survivor fan, obviously the Pacific Ring of Fire was such a strong group, such a strong alliance. Were you ever worried that Seali was going to take that all the way through to the end and not you?
Do you know what's crazy is I feel like I wasn't even that aware of that alliance. And you knew that they were like friends and they would chat and they were probably had more alliance to each other than they would have to me. But it wasn't like you see it on the TV of like, this is the Pacific Ring of Fire, we're the alliance. I wasn't aware of that. And so I've seen people being like, oh, why would Bailey do that? The Pacific Ring of Fire is so strong. But in the game, wasn't super aware of it. Jace was one of Jace and Donna were my top two people. So I didn't really see it as much. Yeah. And I didn't think it was as strong as maybe it's depicted on the show.
Okay. And very shortly after, we do see you guys recruit poor Ben just to break his heart and phone him out straight away. Can you run us through
So we had one last opportunity to recruit, and we took it, and we were like, who could we possibly recruit? And at that night, at that round table, Ben had said, if you came into this game and you weren't prepared to be a traitor, why are you here? We all joined this game knowing we could have been a traitor. So to say, I wouldn't take it, I would just quit, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, we were trying to figure out who the heck to pick. And I was like, well, Ben did say, he's kind of willing to be a traitor. So why don't we pick him? So we did. And I don't know. I can't remember if I was like, we're voting him out tomorrow or if that's the way it just kind of like transpired. But yeah, it was brutal. It was so
brutal. Especially because Molly was always my number one. And you were always Julia's number one. So you took out Molly. It's like, you took out her right-hand man. And Ben, like, come on, Bailey. You're breaking my heart here.
I'm so sorry. It was so dark. It was honestly the strategy of sprinkling people's names in, like, from the get-go. If anyone goes on future seasons, it worked. Like, you just put names out for good reasons. You can't just, put out willy-nilly, but it worked. Yeah.
While you're a trader, was there any point where you almost slipped up?
Oh, okay. All the funny chat about, what colors the capes and what does the conclave look like? Yeah. I was struggling. As funny as it was, I was really struggling to like keep laughing at it. And it just, it sounds so silly, but I was just like, and I was just getting like so done with it because I was like, I can't keep pretending to laugh like this. I cannot keep this up. So that was probably where I felt like, people might be switching on that I'm, wasn't as laughy and jokey about these specific like trader conclave questions. But apart from that, I think the only other time I was like hyper aware of saying something was when Joe came for me in like the last day. And I was like, okay, let's see how I go. I felt sick. I was like, oh God, can I do this? Can I defend myself? Yeah. And he actually didn't really even give me the chance to properly defend myself, which was a blessing because I don't know if I would have screwed up if I actually had to fight back. But the fact he was like, don't want to sort of engage with this, I was like, great. Fantastic.
well, I guess just before Joe comes hard at you, we do see the cat is, going so hard after Seali time and time again. What was it like for you, I guess like witnessing all that? Did you ever think about turning on Seali with Cat at that point?
I knew I was going to have to turn on Seali at some point, and I wanted it to be further along. So I choose him, and then he comes into breakfast, and everyone's like, "It's Seali." He's been a trader for 5 minutes. Like, what is going on? I thought I could trust this guy. But the thing I knew I was going to have to go for Seali, and I was kind of trying to figure that out. But I couldn't jump on board with Cat's things because, like I was saying, they were just too like personal. And like you see me in the show kind of defending like the timeline of it all and being like, well, it doesn't really make sense. We think there was this many traders, so you think he was a trader the whole time? It doesn't add up. And I said that to Cat, and I was like, Cat, like I see what you're doing. Like I see what you're saying. I trust that what you're saying has happened. I didn't see it. And to me, it's not enough evidence to go on. So, it was a lot of kind of that. But I knew I was trying to gear up to the point that I was going to have to vote him out. So it was staying in the back of my mind. But, I couldn't jump on board with that.
And just before, we do get to that dramatic roundtable where Seali does get voted out, we do see you conquer a personal mission where you have to, you're trapped inside of a coffin. You have to, like untie yourself and, get out and then travel down this like really spooky, weird, like sewage tunnel type deal. Like walk us through like the whole mission.
So at breakfast, right, you get told you got your personal missions today. And I'm thinking, oh God, what did I say was my worst fear in my application form, And my worst fear is skinks. Like I can't deal with skinks. And I just thought, I know they wouldn't have been able to source like 100 skinks. So I think I'm okay. I was very matter of fact, like I don't think that's going to be possible. So when I saw it was a coffin, I was like, okay. And then they're tying me up. And I was like, it took, I reckon maybe like 15 minutes to actually tie me up into the ropes. And it took, the fact it was taking so long, and then they're like, okay, you've got 5 minutes to get yourself out of the coffin, get yourself untied, get yourself to the other place, crawl through the tunnels, ring the bell. I was like, they've taken this long to tie me up. How am I going to get out of it? And then I'm in this coffin, and it destroys the illusion, but I'm not scared of small spaces. I was so scared of time running out. That was my biggest fear. And I was like, okay, if I can just get the lid off and then I'll have more space to get out of these ropes. So they don't show it, but the lid comes off and I stand up and I get the ropes off and then I kind of forget what I'm meant to do next. And I think I was expecting someone to be like, okay, cool, like done. And then I was just standing there in silence for about 10 seconds. And then I was like, oh no, I've actually got to do more now. And run, and you had to listen to this thing. I think the worst bit was the crawling in the stuff, and it looked like vomit. It was more like dog food and cat food and stuff, and the smell is still in my clothes. I've washed my clothes from April.
Oh no.
Endless times, put the fancy smelly stuff in, they still stink of this like dog food smell. It's so gross. But overall, I really lucked out. I thought I had like the easiest one. I don't know how Donna did the mouse. Like, there was no way. I could not have done that.
So I think that's the trick. When you're applying and they ask what your biggest fear is, don't tell them.
Live.
So like I would say snakes, because a lot of people are scared of them, but I actually don't mind them. So I'd be like, yeah, really scared of snakes. They'll put me in a snake pit and I can just go, so scary.
Yeah, honestly. It was so funny at our watch party. My partner asked everyone, we had about 40 friends and family there, and he's like, which is your worst mission? And he got everyone to vote which their like worst nightmare would be. And most people said Seali's. Most people thought his was the worst.
My favorite movie of all time is Peter Jackson's King Kong. And the scene that always gets me is like the giant insect pit where they're fighting off the giant cockroaches and stuff. And so just since then, like every time I see a bug, I'm like, I know what you can become. And so
I could not have done the abseiling. I couldn't have done Jason's the abs. Oh my gosh. That would have really gotten me.
Oh, that was the one I wished I got. I was like, that would have been so fun. Would have loved that. And even Joe's, I was like, yeah, I could probably do that. It'd be horrible, but I think I could do it. But Donna's, I would have had no clue.
Just wondering, with Joe's one, because we saw there was some chicken there. Do you know if he was allowed to use the chicken with the sauce or not?
I have no idea. I don't remember noticing the chicken. I didn't hear anything about chicken.
I think there's chicken there. Maybe I'm seeing things. I don't know.
I'll have to rewatch. Like I said, I haven't watched that one again, so I'll probably watch it today. I'll let you know.
Awesome. Well, at the round table, we did briefly talk about Joe's going like hard after you, but he's not letting you have any time to defend yourself, which he says is a blessing. Was there anything else that we didn't really get to see, like with more people, I guess, like trying to go after you?
To be honest, probably not. Maybe Jace had asked me stuff, but don't really remember. I feel like now my memories of it is so like honed in on what the show showed everyone, but in terms of that, no. I think maybe Seali, me and Seali had a bit more dialogue between each other. And I think it was kind of like, well, Seali, why are you randomly now bringing my name into it? So I think that's dodgy. And then that kind of backed up my vote for Seali. But apart from that, they've done a really good job at putting in like the crux of all of it, really. I think the only thing that people were probably a bit more surprised about was how close Donna and I actually were, and with Jace. I think that's kind of the thing that you don't see too much of. But I was so lucky. Like, honestly, I reckon if someone had have really come for me at the end, like maybe if Jace had really like come for me hard, I would have maybe cracked. I don't know. But I think I was just lucky that, and I think it was probably also a bit of strategy of having people at the end who I knew wouldn't attack as much. I knew Joe would, but I knew I had points to kind of back myself up to Joe and to kind of retaliate back to Joe. So, but it was tricky.
Yeah. Were you always confident that Jason was going to stay by your side? Or did you think there's a chance he could have joined with Seali and Joe?
I think that last day I was actually like, oh, okay, he might go. But in saying that, I think I was also very naive because at the very, very end, cameras are gone, so I don't know if this will make it, but Paul's like, you came so close to going home. Like, they were on to you. And I was like, I was a bit like, really?
Yeah.
And then Jason's like, I was on to you. I knew it was you because of this. And that kind of shocked me a bit. I was like, really? But you have to mentally set yourself up for reaching the end. There's only 5 of us left. Someone's a traitor. There's probably 2. Like chances are, you know. So yeah, it's a bit of, I was pretty naive, but thank God I made my way to the end after all that.
But we do see at the final 4, Joe accidentally, votes himself out. Do you know if Donna would have flipped on you if it did come to a tie?
I don't think she would have. This is the thing. I didn't know how the tie would work. And so when Joe, that was the most shocking thing, was obviously Joe's vote. I was like, I thought I was gone. And then I was thinking, oh God, I don't even know how a tiebreaker would work. Like I don't know the protocol for this.
Yeah.
But I think Donna still would have been on my side. I think. I want to say.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
Do you reckon it would be like Survivor and they'll get you guys to do like a fire making challenge? Since it's
I would have been out. I would have, guys can't do it. I would have tried so hard. Imagine. It would have been a nightmare.
Well, at the final 3, everyone does vote to keep going. Obviously, you're at the end with Jason and Donna, your 2 most closest, friendships. Was there any part of you that just wanted the game to end with the 3 of them, or did you know that the voting had to keep going?
No, so Donna and I had decided that day we were going to keep going till it was us, and so it was Joe, Seali, Joe, Jace. That was like, this is our method.
Yeah.
Seali, Joe, Jace. So we had that plan, and then the more the day progresses, the more people are like spiraling out, and you're not spending a whole lot of time together. Obviously, individual missions, and then pretty much straight into round table almost, and then straight out. Like there was not a lot of contact. And then you just start seeing people's faces, and people are starting to crumble, and you're like, okay, well, we decided Seali, Joe, Jace this morning. I don't know if that's actually going to happen now. It's so scary. It just changes so fast.
Yeah. Well, what was the feeling like? You've taken out Joe, you've taken out Jason, and you know that Donna is just about to find out. Like what were you feeling in that time?
My brain was like split in between. Okay, this is my nightmare coming true. Like I felt like this was going to happen for the last few days, and here we are.
Yeah.
And what kind of, okay, I'm going to be crying. This is very upsetting. This is sad. How's Donna going to take it? And then 50% of, holy shit, I've just won. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, okay. And so part of your brain wants to like jump for joy and skip and be like, oh, I just won this game. I've won this game. I did out because I wanted to do something crazy. I won it. And then your other half of your brain is just like, holy shit, this is so sad. And this person in front of you who you love out of most of all these people, that's who you respect the most, is devastated. And how can you jump for joy when you're seeing that? And so walking over, I just felt sick. And I didn't know how it was going to come out. And it comes out so quietly. I almost thought I was going to have to say it again. I was like, well, that didn't come out loud enough to the mic. Like, so it was awful. I just wanted that whole night to be over. I wanted to be on the plane on the way home. Yeah.
Well, now
just pause a second. My door's blown open from the winds. Just hold on a second. I'm going to shut my door. We rehung it, and so it's got a dodgy. It sometimes blows open, and I've made all the efforts to keep my dog out, but then the wind just went whoosh. So then I knew my dog would be coming in and tapping around. Anyway, continue.
Well, now that Traitors is over, Bailey, like what's next on the horizon? Are there any other reality TV shows or anything that you keep on going on?
No way. I was I keep saying that. I'm like, well, how does anything compare? Like, what do you do next? That's like the next like step up into something exciting. I feel like that's kind of peak excitement. But no, I'm not an actor. I'm not inclined to be on reality TV. This is the one show I was like, yeah, I'll do that and nothing else. But no, I think it's just living my little old life and just thinking back on how fun this was.
Yeah. Well, if there was some kind of all-star or returning player season, would you come back and play?
Oh, I kept saying no, as in like, I just don't know if I could do it again. And then it's hard because then you're like, do I play the same? Do I play different? Maybe. Do you know what? I have said I'm 30 next year, and I have said I want to do a Traitors themed birthday party and actually like play it with my friends and family, because I'd love to see how they deal with it. Yeah, I'd just love to see people I know going on it. I would just love to watch just what they do and how they do it. But yeah, no, it was once in a lifetime, I think. I don't think they'd want me. I'm so boring. I'm literally just like, I'll just say this little bit and I'll just chill in the background and then I'll vote and then I'll kill someone, but I'm not gonna like stir the pot. So they wouldn't want me. They'll take like Mike and Mark. And
Well, if you were to play again, would you want to play as a traitor right from the very start, or would you want to try and go through the game as a faithful?
I would love to try go through the game as a faithful, because I was once I was a faithful, I was like, okay, cool, all right. And pretty much very early on at one of the round tables, I got told like, we all know you're a faithful, so don't even worry, like don't even really have to say anything. I was like, okay. So yeah, I think playing as a faithful the whole time would actually be really fun, and then seeing how you go. Well, the opportunity I was robbed of.
Well, that does bring us towards the end of our podcast. Vee, have you got any last questions or comments you would like to make?
Absolutely. Bailey, you played looking back, like a flawless game. And I know it wasn't all intentional, but it ended up being textbook. Could you sum up your game plan or your strategy in just a few words if you were to look back in hindsight?
I would sum up my strategy as like calculated, faithful playing the whole time. So
even as a trader,
100%, whatever happens, calculated, faithful playing. And that's how I said it at the start, and it sounded silly, and I knew that everyone was just like, oh, that's so dumb. Like, of course, everyone's going to try play as a faithful, but that's what I mean is, you have a plan, you stick to your personality, but calculated, and you just do that every day as far as you can.
Yeah. Well, Bailey, can I say thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. You know, like you're like such a massive player, you know, for season 2, you know, a great winner of the show. And we both really wanted to chat to you as well. So thank you so much for coming on. You are a superstar.
Thank you for having me, guys. This is really fun. It's always therapy when you debrief the show.
And just before we do wrap things up, is there anything you'd like to advertise? Any personal projects or social medias or anything like that?
Look, I'm not one to advertise. I am a wedding videographer in New Zealand, in Auckland, and my company name is Happy House Films. So I have a little Instagram page. It's just a baby page right now, but looking forward to starting the season again shortly and going to film people's weddings. And they've got a little trader in the corner.